fields are quiet, but not because the job is finished. The machines are getting it done. In rural China, where for generations the pace of life had been defined by planting and harvesting by hand, something unprecedented is occurring. Robotic arms plant rice seedlings with machine-like precision. Drones fly overhead, spraying pesticides in lines. Autonomous harvesters sweep across fields, controlled not by farmers, but by satellites and computers. It isn't science fiction. It's already happening. And it's asking a question no one can avoid anymore. Will robots replace Chinese farmers with humans? It sounds melodramatic. But behind this question lies a deeper transformation, one that speaks to the urgency of food security, the realities of labor shortages, the march of automation, and the growing pains of a country trying to bring 21st century technology to its most ancient industry. Because when you're responsible for feeding over 1.4 billion people, and your traditional workforce is aging out fast, the solution might not be more hands. It could be more machines. To see why China is so busily adopting farm robots, you must grasp the challenge it's working to address. For generations, Chinese farming was a people-intensive, village-based activity, but young workers are increasingly leaving the countryside for urban areas in search of opportunities in technology, manufacturing, or service industries. The consequence? The typical age of a Chinese farmer is now more than 60. In certain rural provinces, it's even older. Villages are depopulating. Land is being left unused. And yet, food demand keeps growing. China has a feudal balancing act to perform: feed a huge population, wean itself off dependence on foreign food, and cope with a declining and aging rural labor force. The government is aware that it's unsustainable. That's why agricultural modernization, particularly automation, has emerged as a national imperative. And that's where the robots enter the scene. Let's begin with what exactly is being employed in the fields. In provinces such as Heilongjiang, Jiangsu, and Anhui, agricultural drones are used and capable of plowing, planting, and fertilizing with little human intervention. These aren't simply automation. They're functional machines, constructed by companies like Exag, Zoomlion, and even state-sponsored projects. Tractors with GPS, sensors on board, and computer vision technology are taking the place of humans. In the old days, a crew of laborers would have spent an entire day plowing a field. Today, one machine can accomplish it quicker, more accurately, and without tiring. And then there are the farm drones, and no one has left their stamp here as much as DJI. Best known for its camera drones, DJI has developed a fleet of agricultural drones that can spray pesticides, monitor crop health, and even map farmland in high-resolution detail. The DJI Agras line of drones can cover vast areas with pinpoint accuracy, reducing chemical waste, saving water, and minimizing exposure to toxic sprays. Thousands of these drones are already in use, and not just on massive commercial farms. Even small-scale farmers are starting to adopt them through government-backed training programs. But the robot revolution doesn't stop there. Robotic arms are also being employed in fruit-producing areas to harvest strawberries, apples, and pears. With AI-based vision systems, the robots are able to detect these fruits as ripe, navigate between branches, and harvest them carefully without bruising the fruit. In Chinese rice paddies, one of the most labor-intensive parts of the country's agriculture, robot planters have been designed for use in muddy, waterlogged fields, planting out neat, evenly spaced rows of seedlings. None of this is coincidental. The government of China has listed smart agriculture as a main national strategy. In the Ministry of Agriculture and Rural Affairs, billions of yuan have been invested in increasing agricultural mechanization and rural tech innovation. In 2021 alone, more than 60% of China's entire area of farmland had been partially or entirely mechanized, and that figure grows every year.
But the objective isn't merely to bring farms into the modern era, it's to make them automated. Over the past decade, Beijing has rolled out dozens of pilot projects nationwide with an aim to turn traditional villages into digital agriculture ones. In Jiangsu province, one of such villages is now fully robot-controlled, with autonomous rice planters, swarms of drones, AI irrigation, and 5G-connected soil monitoring all in continuous use. Farmers here no longer tread the fields, they oversee them from control centers. Chinese tech giants are also joining in. Alibaba, for example, has introduced an agricultural AI platform known as ET Agricultural Brain that leverages big data and cloud computing to maximize crop development. It collects information from drones, sensors, weather stations, and satellites, then provides real-time advice on planting, fertilizing, and harvesting. And the outcomes? Increased yield, reduced costs, and fewer errors. But while robots may be efficient, the human question remains: what happens to the farmers? The fear, naturally, is that machines will do the work of people, leaving vulnerable communities already in the margins. And for older farmers, this is a real fear. Many don't have training or interest in learning to pilot drones or use AI software. For them, farming is not only a livelihood, it's identity, heritage, and survival. To be displaced by machines feels like erasure. But there's another side to the tale. While many of the older workers fight the transition, a new generation of tech farmers is arising. Young, educated entrepreneurs who view agriculture as a chance, not a chore. In provinces such as Guangdong and Shandong, these tech-savvy folks are starting drone companies, operating remote farms, and even monetizing live-streamed farm tours as side hustles.
Actually, most of today's automation initiatives still need human control, just different types of work. Farm work is being outsourced to logistics, data processing, and technology maintenance. The farmer of the future might do more spreadsheet time than shovel time. Nevertheless, there's one huge barrier: expense. Agricultural robots may be getting cheaper, but they still cost too much for most small-scale farmers, particularly in the less affluent Western provinces. One drone alone can run thousands of dollars. An entire robotic harvester? Much, much more. Hence, most of these technologies are presently clustered in more advanced areas, or subsidized by government and corporate funds.
In order to bring this revolution to the entire country, China is relying on scale and localization. By manufacturing robots locally, educating rural workers, and providing subsidies to embrace new technology, it wants to bridge the gap between innovation and availability. State banks are providing loans to buy drones. Training schools are opening up in agricultural towns. The aim is that eventually, robotic agriculture becomes not a luxury of mega farms, but a lifeline for small farmers. This transition isn't merely about efficiency, it's about survival. China has learned the hard way that food security can't be assumed. Trade wars, global supply chain interruptions, and climate change have all demonstrated that dependence on imported grain and produce is a national threat. By scaling and automating domestic production, the country is able to more successfully insulate itself from global shocks. Furthermore, the more unpredictable the climate becomes, the greater the demand for precision farming, something which robots are perfectly placed to meet. From robotic moisture sensors that tailor irrigation, to machine learning algorithms that forecast pest infestations before they occur, agricultural technology is providing farmers with the ability to respond to an age of extremes. So will robots take the place of human farmers in China? No simple yes or no. They already have in many areas, at least physically. But the more profound truth is this: the farmer's job is evolving. What used to require sweat and generations of expertise is now supplemented by software, drones, and machinery. The term farming is broadening to encompass writing code, data management, and logistics. But humans are not vanishing from the equation. Far from it, in fact, they are becoming more vital, not for their brawn, but for their capacity to guide, adapt, and innovate. Most likely to happen is a hybrid model where machines lift the heavy weight and human beings manage, maintain, and interpret. Labor will be reduced, harvests will be more, and farming will cease to be so much about survival and more about strategy. China's robot agriculture revolution is not about substituting fingers with fingers of machines. It's about redefining the way food is harvested, who harvests it, and what agriculture is in an era of the digital world. In a land where tradition is predominant and revolution is swift, the fields of rice are no longer quiet because they're deserted. They're hushed because the machines are humming. And as China is at the forefront of ushering in a new age of robot-led agriculture, the globe looks on. Will it end the rural labor shortage? Will it put food on plates for billions? Will it lead others to follow? One thing is sure, the future of farming is not merely about land and hands. It's about innovation, data, and machines that never sleep. So, will robots become China's replacements for human farmers? They already have. But maybe that is not the end of the story. Maybe it is just the start of something much greater.